Okay, just got back from a 4-day, 800-mile dirt adventure loop through the deserts of California, Northern California, Nevada, and Oregon, camping off the bike on the 2009 KTM 690 Rally Raid Adventure conversion. So I thought I'd give you some impressions of how this worked as a long-range adventure bike. I own just about everything under the sun in this size category, the 650 size, a DR 650, a KLR 650, the Honda, an XR 600, an XL 650, even a KTM 640, which was just too shaky, too much vibration. I've even tried the V-Strom 650. This is by far the best machine of the class, the KTM 690. They got it worked out well with this LC4 engine. But if you're going to go and get this adventure, long-range adventure ready using the Rally Raid conversion, you're going to be spending a lot of money. It's an expensive, fast, powerful bike. That's why we love them, right? So let me tell you a little bit about the history of this bike, and it'll maybe help you with your decision as to what to do if you want to go this route. I bought this from the original owner. The original owner went through the KTM Wonderfest listing there on Adventure Rider and added just about every piece of bling he could possibly find. Not bling, but every modification that they thought was required for the 690. But he gave up on it after about 4,500 miles. I picked it up from him. I spent a lot of money buying it from him. He'd done everything to the bike except for the most important thing, the suspension. The suspension on these, this is the 2009 model, is just notoriously, ridiculously harsh and stiff. So before you go spend a whole bunch of money fixing up your adventure machine, start first with the suspension. Take it to a local guy, in this case Perry Payton right here locally, and have him completely redo the suspension for your riding style. Completely redoing the shim stack and the internals in this suspension. He was even able to lower it an inch for me. I'm only a 5.5 foot tall guy. This bike is very tall. And make it a completely different handling machine. And that, now all of a sudden, everything's starting to work as a viable long-range adventure machine. Do the suspension first. So on this adventure, I had a little bit of everything. I was solo too. Gnarly single track, rocky, steep Jeep 2-track, gravel freeways, easy gravel freeways, and even some pavement. Very little pavement. I tried to minimize that. Handled everything really well, and but this would be about the biggest bike I would want to take out on such an adventure. I don't know where you get going with the 950s and the 990s and the 1150s. They're just too darn big, especially for a little guy like me. This thing can handle all that terrain and more. Now, on the highway, it's a dirt bike. It's a single cylinder with knobbies and minimal to no wind protection, so it's a noisy howler on the highway. But I've got trail gearing on this. It'll still do 80 miles an hour just fine. The one expensive big piece of equipment I don't have is a steering dampener. And this will develop a bit of a head shake at those kind of highway speeds, especially on a gravel kind of situation. This is the Britannia Lynx fairing. I'm not sure if that's installed correctly, but it's a bit rattly, and I gave up on the adjustable windscreen here because it just constantly was getting loose on me, and I was fiddling with the thumb screws trying to keep it tight all the time. A neat fairing. It holds a lot of stuff in here, but a little too rattly. All the Rally Raid stuff has worked great, and it gives you the fuel range that you need to make this an adventure machine. You really got to work on your ergonomics, get your foot peg, seat, and handlebar height set up for your long-range riding ability, because I put in 300 miles a day, 300 to 400 miles a day, 12 hours a day of riding, and it's got to be comfortable. Giant loop gear, love it. You guys with those big boxes, you're just going to bust your legs on those things. You can really get right up next to the brush, sagebrush, single track, or steep hillsides with this giant loop gear, but you got to keep the load light. This is a bigger load than I normally carry. I've enjoyed bringing this extra bag here just to put a dry, clean place for the sleeping bag. A little three-legged stool from Cabela's really helps in the morning with getting your gear on and giving you a clean place to put your stuff up out of the dirt. And this little thing here, Cabela's Stowaway 6 little fly rod, is the secret weapon for catching fish on your adventures. You probably could just get away with putting this in your backpack and skipping that hard case and saving yourself a little bit of weight. As far as clothes, you're wearing them the whole time. I got a pair of shorts on under here, which I ride all the time, and sandals here. That's it. You're going to rinse off in the rivers and creeks as you go. You're still going to stink like hell. So it's time to wash this thing up, lube the chain, and pressure back into service. Another great thing about the 690, I've got the little 350 and a couple other little KTMs, is you get a longer service interval with this. It's like a 3,000 mile service interval as opposed to the smaller KTMs, which are really race oriented with more like a 15-hour service interval for things like oil changes and valve adjustments and that sort of thing. So the KTM 690 Adventure gets the job done, but will cost you quite a bit of money getting it set up into this configuration. Do the suspension first. And another important point, be sure and readjust your sag of your suspension, your rear suspension, when you go throw the weight of all your gear on the back of it. Have your suspension set up for the weight of the adventure ride. See this soft luggage here? This is why you don't want big boxes on your adventure bike. See this sagebrush? Some of your trails you're going to be riding along just like this. Keep your toes in, and you just scrub right up against that brush. And it's not a problem. Some trails just won't be any wider than one lane. Giant loop coyote bag, the way to go. It's no wider than your own legs. Okay, we're in a tight spot, tight spot. Good limbo. See, that's why you gotta wear good gear all the time. See, that was my head right into the dirt. It's a pig. Got distracted looking at those rocks. That's what you call catching an edge. Whew. That was good.